Thank you all. So we will be moving forward with our last abstract presentation session about centers and resource families. And our first presentation is by Thomas Ercevak and his team from CLARIN Slovenia.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So, as the title says, I will present the Slovenian CLARIN 10 years on. Yeah, we were founded obviously in 2014, so thinking about it, we found out we don't have any actual publication or presentation about the Slovenian CLARIN, except one at the very beginning, which it was basically just plans. So now that we do have something to report, it seemed like a good idea to write abstract and give this presentation. So the Slovenian CLARIN, we were founded, established a consortium 10 years ago, but then in 2015 we became a member of ERIC, and we are located at the Jože Stefan Institute. That's the largest research institute for natural sciences in Slovenia, where three units collaborate. I won't go into details here. Each one has its kind of own distinct purpose in CLARIN. The important thing is maybe more our consortium, that we have 12 partners, large partners. So all 4 Slovenian universities, 4 research institutes. ZRC SAZU is the Slovene Academy, it's the scientific research center of the Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts, where they have the Institute for Slovene Language Fran Ramovš, which is the institution that makes the biggest dictionaries and so on. And then other ones as well. We'll get back to them in a bit. Also 2 companies which we're quite happy to have in our consortium. They both, of course, deal with human language technology products. The National and University Library, which is a recent addition to our consortium, and the Slovenian Society for Language Technologies, which is, it has a pretty impressive tradition by now and quite lots of members as well. And the main decision-making body is our management board, where each partner has 1 representative and deputies. We kind of like to split our services or offers into 3 pillars. The main one is almost by definition the repository. Then we have other web services, and finally the, let's call it, dissemination, knowledge, outreach activities. So I'll go through these in turn. Now, the repository we use along with quite a few other CLARIN centers is the one developed by the Czech CLARIN, or now CLARIAH. And we're quite happy with it and are looking forward to the next version. And we are rather proud. This is something that came along with our experiences in looking through what people deposited. For quite detailed instructions, not only how to enter the metadata into the repository, but also data. So here, I think the important point is that we don't just focus on formats, but also on kind of, at least for computer scientists, pretty trivial things, which might not be trivial for people from humanities. So what a file name should look like and things like that, how to compress your files, so that they're usable and so on and so forth. So we also have a quite detailed page about how data should look like. What we currently offer in these 10 years is about 600 language resources, altogether 5 terabytes of data. 300 of them are also for Slovenian, the rest obviously for other languages or even language independent. And this came about as the effort of over 1,000 authors from 115 institutions. The main type of language resource is corpora, but we also have machine-readable dictionaries, computational lexica, quite a few language models to be used with various tools and tools themselves. We do have quite a nasty editorial process, so for resources submitted by an author for the first time, it's usually once or twice rejected, so that the things are kind of the way we want them to be, and they do in fact correspond to our instructions for the metadata and data. it seems that kind of the more accessible documentation is, the less people will read it. So we do point them to our documentation and say, okay, here it says you're supposed to do it like this and not like that. But at the end, I'm pretty confident that our 600 language resources are fairly tidy and usable for others as well. As far as the web core services go, by far the main, as far as usability, but also the efforts we put into them, are the online concordicers. It's kind of scary. We actually have 4 installations, and that is times 2. So we have 8 virtual machines devoted to our concordicers. Why times 2? Everything is a developmental version and then the production version. So each corpus, before it becomes production, is first installed on a developmental server and tested that everything works, and then only then goes to the production one. Why so many? Partially historical. So we have the no sketch engine in 2 flavors. One is without login for just anybody who comes by and they can use it, but also with login, which not because we would want to force people to log in, but it gives you more options. Yeah, it remembers you, so you have the history of your searches, which corpora you used, what the screen looks like, and so on. You can make your own subcorpora and so on and so forth. We also have context, partially for historical reasons, because at the beginning the old no sketch engine had a kind of bad way of choosing corpora. Context was much nicer, and it also allows the kind of login we're used to in CLARIN, so edugain in the case of Slovenia, AAI. Again, offering more functionalities once you do log in. Also, context now has FCC, but we still need to install the latest version. And then we have the old no sketch version, so-called Bonito. This is for historical reasons, because quite a few of our resources, or resources others have produced, are directly linked to the old no sketch engine. So for instance, you have a dictionary of Twitteries, and for each lexical item there, for each head word, you have a link into the old no sketch engine. So we don't want that to break. So that's the reason why we have so many, but essentially they all offer the same corpora. And that's kind of depending how you count, that's 200 corpora or 100. So if you have a 20-way parallel corpus, is that 1 corpus or 20? If you count it as 20, we have 200. Altogether about 20 billion words for 40 languages, so quite a lot. And we try really hard for each corpus that comes into the repository that it is also available on the concordicers. And they're quite, as far as we know, they're used quite a lot by study programs at universities, not only in Slovenia, but across Europe. Why we know that is because, once we had a problem with the concordicers, everything fell down for 2 days, and we got lots of mails from France and from other places. So what's happening? So that's how we know currently about it. But also for linguistic research, and especially by lexicographers, because obviously they help them a lot in making their dictionaries. The other thing we are rather proud about is something that's the product of our case center, CLASLA. We'll get to that. And it's an annotation tool. It's a fork of the Stanza one, which is fairly well known, I would say, but better than Stanza in that it can make use of lexicons as well, not just training on corpora. And that's, of course, openly available on GitHub, but it also has a web interface so people can upload their text and get them online annotated. And what it does, universal dependencies, lemmas, part of speech, morphological features, syntax, and named entity recognition, and for some languages also semantic roles. The whole tool wouldn't be that great if it wouldn't have models, but it does have models for most of the South Slavic languages, as you see here, and for some also for their non-standard varieties like you found on Twitter and so on. We also have a fairly large number of projects on our virtual organization on GitHub. We have a local installation of GitLab. That's mainly kind of for projects that have software that we use. And then there's a couple of other web services that were produced by University of Ljubljana. And finally, WebOna, which is, I know, quite a bit dated. As far as support goes, As I already mentioned, CLASLA, this is a knowledge center for processing South Slavic languages, and it was, the members are the Slovenian CLARIN, the Bulgarian CLARIN, and the Institute for Croatian Language, and it covers the South Slavic languages. We have a fairly extensive frequently asked questions. CLASLA I already mentioned, but there's also lots of web corpora for South Slavic languages, which are typically maintained. And CLASLA Express, just this year, I won't talk more about this because it was presented yesterday. And finally, also a newsletter. Something that I'm particularly proud of is our call for small projects that started in 2018. Basically, we took over the idea from the Dutch Center. Jan Odijk had this going for a while, so we thought, oh, this is a really nice idea, and we took it on. And we have quite a number of really nice projects completed, producing either software or typically resources. And then we also organize or support events. The main one is, also international events that happen in Slovenia, like ESLI 1 year ago, or the Language Technologies Digital Humanities conferences that take place every 2 years for already 20 years now, and we just had the last one a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, of course, dissemination on conferences, invited lectures, tutorials. This one, I think I will go very briefly through. So we participated in a number of various projects where we got either equipment or we were in one way or another involved. We do collaborate with our sister infrastructures in Slovenia, so CESDA for social sciences and CLARIAH for humanities. And we are really proud of our role in the CLARIN flagship projects, Parliament 1 and Parliament 2, where we produced, of course, with almost 30 partners, a set of comparable parliamentary corpora. As far as further work goes, 2025, the main thing, except, well, the obvious and continuous things which we do every year, is to implement the tracking of the user of our concorders, essentially so we see which corpora are used the most and we can concentrate on developing further those, but also to have these key performance indicators a bit more quantified as far as the concorders go. In the long term, I think increasing outreach, education training is the main goal, because I think we have more to offer than is actually being used in Slovenia, at least. And yeah, in general, it's kind of other things from our strategy, which we, for the first time, we have a strategy made this year, and that the CLARIN ERIC strategy was taken as a kind of baseline, and then we adapted it for our particular needs. The last thing, this is the key personnel here. I will leave this slide up here so you can read who is kind of centrally involved in the Slovenian CLARIN, what they do, and quite a few of them are here, or well, have been here at least until today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations for this long 10 years time of work. Any questions? Yes.
Tomasz, thank you for the nice talk. So my question is as follows. You mentioned in one of the slides about WebAnno that you use it for manual annotation. Could you tell us more whether it's okay? Because we started years ago with this, and then at some point we decided it's not enough, although it's a very nice tool. So I would like to ask you about your opinion, whether it's useful or in which situations and so on. Thank you.
So for those that don't know, WebAnno was made by the German CLARIN, or well, people working there. And it's a tool for manual annotation of corpora. We used it like 6-7 years extensively in a number of projects where we had to manually annotate corpora. We were quite happy with it at the time, and Yeah, we invested a lot of effort into developing scripts that take the WebANO TSV files and convert them into text encoding initiative XML files. We actually presented this a couple, 3-4 years ago at the CLARIN conference. And because of all this investment, we still use it. But in the meantime, there's Inception, which is the new generation WebANO, and we would actually like to switch to it, but didn't get that far, partially because the data format has changed a bit and so on. So it would be a bit of a, work to upgrade. But it's something that we have on our stack for the last 2 or 3 years. So for anybody, wanting a tool now, I would definitely go for Inception or for WebANO. So with us, in a way, it's a bit historical. So that's why it was at the very end as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And now we will move to our second presentation by Henk and his team. I will skip all the names. About a new CLARIN resource family for corpora for communication disorders.
Hi, everybody. It's been a wonderful conference so far. Thank you for having us here. And although Henk and I, Satu Saalasti, will be the ones presenting our work, this is the work of a joint contribution of Alice Lee, Nicola Bessel, Kasia Klessa, and Eric Sanders. And this is difficult. So we will start by introducing DELAD and then move to showcasing our new resource family page and our work related to that, and then a little advertisement in the end about our ongoing survey. So, DELAD, some of us, we met yesterday at the bazaar, but DELAD is an initiative that we started around 2015, and it specifically it's trying to promote corpora of disordered speech. Due to GDPR, there are several specific special issues that related to these data, and so we created a community that can work with these issues together. And the partners are of mixed researchers, infrastructure specialists, legal experts, and we have had annual workshops, which is a really nice way of sharing knowledge. And since 2017, we've been under CLARIN header and support, which I think has been a very good solution as the visibility has increased and also support for work. And the workshops that we had so far have dealt issues like examples of corpora of speech disorders, guidelines for collecting and sharing data, and ethical and legal aspects, just to mention a few. But we are trying to provide a GDPR-compliant platform for digital archiving and sharing of disordered speech data. I, for one, have collected multiple data sets and have promised to destroy them in 10 years, which is, of course, a loss of resources. And we have data that has audio, visual, transcriptions, annotations. You are very familiar with all these. And then we want to enhance research and teaching through this resource. And now we are a CLARIN Key Center, atypical communication expertise, and you can store data at the language archive at the Max Planck Institute for Psycholinguistics, or also via TalkBank. And we've also tried to provide some very hands-on material on our website, so please go if you work these kind of data. But our last effort has been a CLARIN resource family page for CSD. Of course, there are some data sets or some corpora on disordered speech and language, but to make them more usable and findable, we need to make them visible. And this is why we wanted to create a CLARIN resource family page. And we started by looking at the existing data sets. We had people that were involved with DLAD are listed on our website, and also those that were already in TalkBank. And then we did a big effort in searching and filtering CLARIN's VLO to find all the possible data sets that there are. We also used an online questionnaire. Some of you might have received it and filled it. Thank you for that. And we tried to find new potential contributors from all of our networks. And then we also looked for relevant corpora from other resource families. And then I invite Henk.
Well, I saw a sign that we have 5 minutes left, but still I want to deviate a little bit from my what I prepared, and that's thanks to you, Stephen, because what we are talking about here is healthcare, and what Stephen has been telling about indigenous communities really applies to healthcare as well. And I've some personal experience with this, where we have healthcare for elderly people. We are developing here research, but also in the end we want to have tools for people to help. And this can go very wrong if you trust too much on technology. My mother-in-law, she lived in a nursery home where they introduced technology after a reconstruction of the building. And what happened is that they had all kinds of technologies for alarm systems and for communicating with personnel, but the elderly people inside didn't know how to use it, and even worse, the healthcare takers there, the nurses, didn't know how to use it, and it meant that for almost 1 month the alarm system did not work at all. So this, I think, really shows what you really have to see your work in the context of where it is happening and work with the people there. And thank you for reminding me of that, Stephen. CMDI, you think, okay, this is hardly related to what I'm saying, but I believe in little steps. So also a CMDI profile for healthcare is very important. So what we did, we developed one, because every resource on our resource family page should also have an entry in the Virtual Language Observatory. So for those that hadn't, we developed one, but using an existing profile that we had, and then modifying it a little, because this is so nice about CMDI. This is what you can do with this structure, modifying it a little to make it suitable for corpus of speech disorders. And this is what we did. So we added a few components related to speech sound disorders, so I have no time to go into these, but you can also read this later. And for language disorders, of course, we made a closed set, and that's always a dangerous thing to do. For machine reading, this is wonderful, but you always miss categories. Any comments there are also welcome. So in the end, we now have a corpus collection called CSD. Now, Dan was also mentioning CSD, but it was a completely different context. So this is corpora speech disorders, so we hope it's more successful than it was that. So for the remaining ones, we developed metadata records following this profile. And they are now harvested also in the Virtual Language Observatory. So quickly go on with you, Satu.
So our work resulted with an overview of total of 30 corpora 9 relevant corpora were already existing in CLARIN repositories. 7 main collections were found in TalkBank, but also 12 corpora from the existing DLARD inventory and the survey that we circled around were found. And now we have a broad range of speech sound disorders as well as language disorders that are represented. And importantly, a range of language families are represented. However, English is predominant. So again, going back to the previous, I would really like to submit Finnish, for example, but of course, this is to invite you. If you have data sets, corpora that are related to these kind of speech and language disorders, please contact us and add your resource. We can add it to the resource family page as well. And just to end with, we have an ongoing survey again to aim to make an overview on experiences about sharing data sets. Especially we want to know what are the potential bottlenecks that stops people sharing these data. But however, even more so, we are interested in successes, what has been enabled people to share their data and what have been the challenges and how they have been solved locally, because we know that these can vary country to country. So we have a reparable questionnaire that is totally anonymous, and I would encourage you to answer it if this feels relevant to your data sets and research. And please feel forward to share it with your colleagues. It's very short, and I had a look, and we are short of answers, so we are far from getting a full picture. So please do. What I did notice from the answers that we have had so far is that there are a lot of will, and people want to do this in the name of open science, but there's a lack of safe ways to doing it, or a lack of knowledge of safe ways of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
Do I understand correctly that all these resources have been described by a single CMDI profile, or are there multiple?
So that's not true. That it were the ones that didn't have a CMDI record at that time, so we added it with this special profile. And it's good to notice, because we mentioned TalkBank as well, and Dieter mentioned that so the CMU has resigned from being a B center, which also means that we are now have lost their CMDI thing. So one of the things for us to do is now to bring the resources that TalkBank offers into our profile, and we will get in contact with Brian McWhinney for that for sure. Thanks.
Thank you. I also have a question, maybe. You said that you have data and you promised to delete it after 10 years. So I have the impression that it's more like the way to go is how to prevent this in the future. So it's hard to save existing data, but maybe, and it's easier maybe to prevent. So what are you doing with this for this respect?
You are absolutely correct. The previous practices that were, it really was that in ethical permissions and research permissions, you had to state that the data has to be deleted. My My way of doing it is submitting, resubmitting, submitting, resubmitting, and I change the wordings to their liking, and I work closely with Martin and Mirta in phrasing what are the correct ways of ensuring data sharing. And with the new data sets, I have made some successes, yes. So collecting data to be shared as we speak.
So are you going to write some best practices that you want to share?
Best practices, that's a good idea. We could do that, definitely. And
in fact, we have some guidelines for if you want to have ethic support or support for depositing these kinds of resources, then there is on our website, there is our guidelines, and the same holds for annotating these types of resources, and also for sharing these type of resources where we have a data protection impact assessment role play, which is now being used in several courses.
Thank you. We would have time for a small question. Okay, good. Thank you very much for the presentation. And now we will move to our last speaker of this conference, Stephen Coates, who will present a development outlook for CLARIN's Northmost Center.
So thank you very much. I'm Stephen, and you'll notice that I've changed the title a little bit. This has to do with what Dieter was telling us about. The technical infrastructure, the center registry updating has become automated, and actually Tromsø is further north than Oulu. But the content of the slides is the same. We can say it's Finland's northernmost center. And we have a nice view of the wilderness out near Oulu in Finland. So I'll say a few words related to kind of the background of this new center. Of course, there are related centers. CLARIAH is the principal Finnish language resources infrastructure. Also CKCMC, a K center here in CLARIN. And then the Oulu CLARIN Center. I want to talk a little bit about the legal context for the sort of data that I'm putting up there. And this is maybe a little bit complementary to what Pavel was speaking about yesterday, and then describe the resource which is on the at the center now, which is COANS Audio, and then the plans for development. So COANS Audio is a big corpus of aligned and geolocated Australian and New Zealand speech, and I created this last year in 2023. And I was very keen to implement Shibboleth login, which works so well for so many CLARIN resources. And in fact, I had a lot of help from the CLARIN ERIC team over here, so thank you for that. But as part of the process of getting this going, I had to become an official CLARIN center. And so after that, I thought, why not expand the center to incorporate new resources as well? So the planned focus is going to be on multimedia corpora of computer-mediated communication, for example, from the big American tech platforms, YouTube and Twitch and maybe X and TikTok and so on. So a few words about CLARIAH. Here we see kind of a schematic outline of the structure of CLARIAH comprising DARIAH, Fi and CLARIN. And I think many of you know all about this already. The Kielipankki, or the Language Bank of Finland, hosts a tremendous range of language resources and tools and services. And most of these are hosted through Finland's Center for Scientific Computing and accessible through the Korb platform. So I'm sure many of you know all about this. The focus for Kielipankki is quite naturally on the national and official languages of Finland, so Swedish and Finnish and the Sami languages, and more generally on Finno-Ugric languages. Of course, other languages are represented as well. But for now, there's not a huge representation of social media sourced content, for example, in English. And so this is what I'm hoping to kind of do with the Oulu Center. And then You can see here, I've added another orange slot here to have kind of a parallel center for this special type of data, the Oulu CMC Center. The CKCMC is a knowledge center, and this is a site to disseminate information about computer-mediated communication, resources, technologies, and activities. It also hosts the proceedings of the annual CMC Corporate Conference series, provides organizers training opportunities, and historically has then served as a very important center for the development of these new TEI XML guidelines for markup of CMC, which I think were just officially released this summer. But the K Center, of course, doesn't host the corpora per se. So we're planning to work very closely with the K Center, the CKCMC K Center, but actually host the resources that are searchable up in Oulu. What about the legal context? Well, this is something which is kind of opened up recently. And of course, I'm planning to use then data from YouTube, data from X, so data from TikTok, and so on and so forth. Traditionally, US copyright law has been pretty open to this sort of reuse of copyrighted material. There's the so-called fair use doctrine, which has been around for quite a long time. If you're doing research or education and it doesn't present a threat to then the commercial opportunities for the material, you're allowed to use copyrighted material. Australian and New Zealand and UK law has kind of an analogous provision, fair dealing. But in the EU, this has really opened up since the 2019 directive, so this Digital Single Market Act, which licenses then basically data scraping, data mining. And this explicitly states that you're allowed to use this sort of material for this data for research and education. Of course, as Pavel was explaining yesterday, a directive needs to be codified in national law in the EU, and this has taken some time in the national contexts. In Finland, they finally passed this last year in the spring, so the tekijän oikeuslaki, the copyright law, was updated, and as you can see, I've put a translation here. It specifically licenses this sort of use of copyrighted material. The situation is the same in other EU countries now. So we can use this YouTube data. What is in the center now is COANS audio. The initialism stands for Corpus of Australian and New Zealand Spoken English. And this is 57,000 automatic speech recognition transcripts of YouTube channels of regional and local councils, so government entities, local government entities in Australia and New Zealand. And it can be used for a wide variety of research perspectives, or from a wide variety of perspectives. So for example, research into grammar. A paper last year, we looked into a rare grammatical syntactic phenomenon known as double modals in Australia and New Zealand. Lexis, phonetics, of course, pragmatics. There was recently a study published on politeness in comparing New Zealand with the UK and politeness in council meetings. Many of the recordings are of meetings, so that's kind of a tradition in the Anglophone world, is that all meetings need to be open to the public. But this also offers advantages in terms of representativeness and comparability. So virtually all of the speakers in a meeting are going to be at least resident in that locality. So if they're from Adelaide and they're on the Adelaide City Council, then they're probably also resident in Adelaide. If we compare, for example, then searches in YouTube based on a place name alone, then that might not necessarily be the case. If we do a search for, say, Bondi Beach or something, then the speaker will not necessarily be from Bondi. And then the topical contents and communicative contexts are typically comparable. So these are actually quite boring videos if you watch them on YouTube. So they're talking about zoning regulations, and we need to plan the budget for next year, and we need to buy a new fire truck or something like that. So typically these videos will have like 8 or 10 views on YouTube. But let's take a look at exactly the data that I'm working with. So this is a very short excerpt at the beginning of this is a video from Maranoa, which is in Queensland, west of Brisbane, about 100 kilometers. Just listen to the first few seconds. course, the YouTube's automatically generated transcripts here at the bottom of the screen. And then YouTube makes this available in various data formats. So this is web VTT, web video timed text. And of course, the individual words have then timing tags here. And so you just have to parse this. And then the tabular format of the COAN's data looks like this. So you've got a few columns for country and state location, then the name of the council, the name of the channel, URL, and then each row corresponds to the transcript for a single video. The video ID is then an alphanumerical sequence for identifier in YouTube, upload date, and then the length in seconds. Then you've got the part of speech tagged text, so the part of speech tagging was done with spacey. And then location information, which I've added to this, and latitude, longitude coordinates, and the number of words. So COAN's audio also includes all of this textual information in these fields, but also the corresponding audio clips. And this is available through the Shibboleth CLARIN login at this address. It also includes then not only the audio, but the forced alignment files, so you can extract then segments that might be of interest and do a phonetic analysis, a format analysis, for example. This is powered by Black Lab, developed at the Dutch Language Institute, and that is a very fast search engine. It's based on Apache Lucene, so it works quite well. And this is hosted then on a server at Finland's CSC. So this is an overview of the COAN's size. So you get an idea of the number of channels sampled, total number of videos, number of words, and the video length, and then the number of files. So I've cut the files into approximately 10-second chunks so that you can listen to a 10-second chunk for any search that you might want to conduct. And then obviously here the more populous states in Australia have quite a lot more data. Northern Territory, where Stephen is located, not as many municipalities that maintain YouTube channels up there compared to, Victoria or something. For New Zealand, I haven't broken it down into individual districts, but of course, every one of these 74 channels has exact location information, so it's not difficult to allocate it to districts if you so wish. So the plans for the Oulu Center, I have other resources, the Corpus of North American Spoken English, which is much larger. In fact, I was kind of planning the Australian data as kind of a test project before I move on to the North America data, but Australia is so interesting that I'm still working with that for the moment. And then Britain and Ireland Spoken English, and then a corpus of German speech. I plan to host some pipelines for automatic data collection if you want to compile then similar collections with this sort of data from YouTube or for other platforms. Tools for collecting Twitch transcripts, for example, in live chat corpora. So the thing about the underlying technology is can really get anything that is streamed online, because the protocols which are used for streaming are quite standardized now. So the dynamic adaptive streaming over HTTPS and HLS. So really anything that is, any video that's streamed online, you can do this sort of scraping. It's not difficult. And then in development with some colleagues in Germany, we're working on a Singapore podcast corpus for Singapore English, and we'll plan to release that as well. Potential problems with the development for the center. So it's difficult to do everything with just one person. And I've got a lot of teaching to do up in Oulu. So we would need some funding and some grants, and then I'm hoping that's where CLARIN can maybe step in a little bit, but we'll see. Computational resources are needed. Of course, Finland has a great computational infrastructure, and the people from the CSC will undoubtedly be very helpful there. That's all. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the very interesting talk. And we're looking forward for these new resources. There already is a question. Martin?
Yeah, Stephen, thanks very much for your talk. I was a bit late, so maybe this is a stupid question, but why do you actually require login when you provide videos that are publicly available?
Wait, sorry, could you repeat that, Martin? Sorry?
So you said that you use Shibboleth federated login, and I'm happy to for it to be used, but I was just wondering, is this really necessary since the videos are publicly available on YouTube?
Well, the resource is searchable in a way that YouTube is not. So the YouTube default search interface can't look for example, grammatical sequences or specific word sequences, and then return all of the videos that contain that targeted sequence. The YouTube location information, so they have an algorithm which automatically assigns location to some videos, not all of them, but that's typically not accurate. But the locations of councils in Australia are well known, and I've made sure that these are accurate locations. And so one application is kind of the exploration of regional variation in English in Australia, which is something which hasn't been studied a lot. Previously, people thought there's no regional variation in Australia in English, but phoneticians in Australia are doing important work on this. I think this might be a useful resource for them.
Stephen, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I think I have three short questions. The first is, what do you know about the quality of the transcriptions when they are taken directly? Did you do some quality measures? Probably for English it's better than for Dutch, but I mean for Dutch they are not always very good, these transcriptions. Second, when you publish this, is this with the videos included? Because we also use link to the videos because terms of services, etc. And third, these are massive numbers, so according to what we learned yesterday, the Data Services Act, you now should be a vetted researcher, and I would like to meet one.
Yeah, thanks, Henk, for the question. So the quality is, of course, highly variable. So it really depends on so the acoustics of the room, the recording devices that are being used, and there are a lot of ASR errors in the data. So it's noisy data. It's not necessarily going to be completely accurate and useful for every purpose. But I think from kind of a large scale perspective, it is pretty useful. I have done a little bit of testing. So for those videos that have uploaded, manually uploaded transcripts, as well as the automatic speech recognition transcripts, you can kind of calculate a word error rate based on that. And I've found that it's around 12 to 15%. So, I mean, it's not great, but it's kind of approaching human annotation quality. Yeah, the other remarks, so about the Digital Services Act, so that, as far as I understand, is something which really kind of restricts the activities of big tech companies, big American tech companies. As Pavel was explaining to us, so they are required to make data available, especially in these situations where it might infringe upon, vulnerable populations and so on and so forth. I'm coming from the other end. So I'm not asking YouTube for this data. I'm going to get the data because Dash is an open protocol. Anyone can get the data. And I'm not Google. I don't have hundreds of billions of dollars. So, I mean, they're not going to chase after me, I hope. But so, I mean, the 2019 directive, I think, allows this sort of thing, and the DSA, I think, is coming from kind of a different legal perspective.
Sorry, I had a follow-up on what was just asked about the quality of transcriptions. Are you not afraid that there will be certain varieties of English that might be less represented in the training set of the model that Google uses for transcripts, and thus certain varieties will get systematically worse transcriptions than other varieties? This could affect the...
Yeah, that's a legitimate concern. There have been some papers published that indicate that transcription quality can depend not only on these acoustic parameters, but also on individual demographic parameters. And then I would imagine the case that for maybe Aboriginal Australian English varieties, the ASR transcripts are going to have a higher error rate. So that's something certainly to take into account. So this data is not going to be useful for every possible research case. So it is possible then to kind of, everything is indexed. So you can maybe get a special subcorpus of maybe demographics that are of interest and then kind of manually annotate it. But that of course is time consuming. But yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
I also have a follow-up question about the videos. So if I understood correctly, you have only the links to the original video, which is still on YouTube, right? You don't download or share the video itself.
Oh, yeah, that's quite right. And in fact, that's, I think Henk, you asked that as well. So yeah, the videos are not on the page. It's just the text, the ASR transcripts, and then also these approximately 10-second blocks of audio, which are then scraped from the video. So
are kind of dependent on the videos being there on YouTube for a long time. Otherwise, if YouTube takes the videos down, then they disappear from the corpus as well, right? But it's not covered anymore.
Yeah, if you're interested in some specific phenomena pertaining to, gesture or something like that, and the video is not there, then of course you can't do an analysis. But I mean, the transcripts and the speech, the sound, those are preserved for posterity. But of course, it is the case that people who have run YouTube channels, they sometimes take down videos or they make them private. So if you're looking for a video that is indexed in this corpus, it could well be the case that, it's disappeared. It's no longer on YouTube. So.